Hello and welcome everyone. You are now on the main event webinar. I'm Nita Sani and I'm really pleased today to be joined by Alex Fay of Ethical Angel. Hi Alex, how are you doing?
Hi Nita, I'm great. Thank you for having me on the show.
It's a real pleasure to have you on board today, and actually really timely because we're talking leadership. We're talking about the power and the impact of leadership, and you're going to walk us through Ethical Angel and how you bring that impact for leadership success into organizations. So before we start, well, we've already had a little warm up, and I think we've got more to say than the time we have, as always. The session, for those of you who haven't joined before, I'll do a quick bit of housekeeping. The sessions are between 30 and 40 minutes. We keep them succinct. We know how important everyone's time is, how valuable it is. So we hope in that time that you can go away with some morsel of a eureka moment or something, take something away that you can apply in your organization straight away. That's our promise to you. We also have this as recorded. And so if you don't get notes down or there are things that you missed, you'll get a recording of this later in the day. So don't worry too much if you miss things, you'll get it to watch again. We also upload everything onto Spotify and YouTube now as well, which I've been told. I didn't know we did that. So it's accessible out there. As always, we really value having everyone in this chat room together. As such, we have an interactive chat box, which I'm going to demonstrate by typing a quick hello there. It's as simple as that. So put your thoughts, your comments, any questions for Alex and I. And finally, the all-important poll. So the poll today covers what area of leadership development is most needed in your organization. We've got 4 areas to cover. So number 1, communication. How good are your leaders at actually communicating and talking and sharing knowledge or sharing instruction? Then we've got clarity of direction of the organization. So do you actually know what the medium to long-term plan is for your team, for your organization, for your division? Motivation and well-being and self-awareness. Does your leader understand the impact they're having on you and everyone around them? So we will share the results of that poll at the end. Currently, communication sits at 2/3 and self-awareness sits at 1/3. So it'll be interesting to see how that moves along as everyone joins the room and starts commenting. So, Alex, what are your thoughts so far on that poll?
I mean, I think self-awareness is a huge one for leaders. Yeah. If a leader's aware of how they're coming across, and I think it entails almost all the other things as well. So that's certainly where I'll be putting my vote.
Right. Well, and so I guess we should start by saying if self-awareness is where you put your vote, is that the premise upon which Ethical Angel is built?
I think so. I mean, my personal story and how that sort of transitioned into the Ethical Angel journey was one of self-awareness and realization. It turned out that as a CEO and founder of a fast-growing technology company, I was actually a pretty crummy boss. You know, we struggled. Every day felt like I was trying to get people to do things that they didn't want to do or they didn't see value in. And the way that I'm built, or my brain is built, I see things in a very sort of rational, very sort of linear style. And so when you sort of add sort of the complexities of human emotion into those interactions, it was fireworks. Every day was just a fight.
Yeah. And we don't understand, do we? We don't understand why your intention isn't received the way it was meant to be.
Of course, you know, I'm just trying to build a great company that makes the world better. But people rarely hold a mirror up to you. You know, you can give it a bit of time. You can see that, okay, some employees left and they didn't leave great feedback about the founder and CEO. You can see that productivity is not high. You know, little things like that sort of add up to give sort of an impression of things not being optimal.
Yeah.
And eventually what happened was I spoke with the board and I was like, hey guys, like things are going really well on this side of the business, but I'm just not very good and I really need some help. And it's not the sort of help that I think you can get from a YouTube video or those tons of books. You know, I'm sure we've all seen those books that come out every sort of 3 months. You know, the next great sort of leadership strategy. What I needed was behavior coaching. And so 6 months later, you know, I'm happy to say that our employee net promoter scoring is absolutely through the roof. We've got retention of staff at a level that we didn't have sort of a year ago. And we even have ex-employees now wanting to come back, which is awesome.
That's new for my ears. That's fantastic. Yeah. For the main group and our promise of being on that journey with our client base and our network and saying it's all very well hiring, right? But how do you retain? How do you embed? And how do you create a succession plan for the long term? You know, it all comes down to them having this inspirational leader that not only walks the walk, but actually inspires everyone else to want to do the same.
It's creating that culture, right? And like what I didn't realize was that my approach, my style, my sort of highly sort of rational sort of impression and very sort of little empathy, I didn't realize how that was having an effect on the culture. You know, all of the sort of reasons behind all the intention was good, and like the workload was right, and the outputs were sort of what they needed to be, but the culture was lacking. As soon as you turn that culture around, that's when you get sort of extraordinary things happening. And suddenly the challenges for the business persist. They always will. But rather than sort of feeling like I was going to work every day and sort of battling with the team in order to battle the challenges, suddenly the team were all with me, you know, and we were battling these things together. And it's just been extraordinary.
And that's such a fantastic story of success, because for my own journey, I came into the main group as a financial controller, became finance director, became managing director, and really, you know, thought about myself as the custodian of the business. And it wasn't until I bought the business I realized that actually my role is to lead and inspire people to come along on that journey and actually give them the tools to be able to grow the main group as much as I want to grow it. And, you know, I have my analogy of the hand, where if you're one leader, this is as far as your business goes. But if you create and empower each of your people to be leaders in their own right, then the growth of your organization becomes exponential. And as you said, you watch your people, going ahead of where you even imagined you would be. And but so many organizations are stuck. They're stuck in this space where leaders, we talked about the mirror and the self-awareness, and the pandemic hasn't helped, has it? People working from home. I mean, one good thing is that people thought their leaders were more sympathetic, and I think that created a bit more loyalty. I mean, what's your experience been over the last couple of years in leadership?
I mean, I think it's a fascinating inflection point for workforces, full stop, and how we work and how we live. And I think there's a huge amount of positives that could come out of it if sort of looked after properly. I did a thing early on in the pandemic where I read about sort of 7 C's that are likely to come from it, and changing to sort of workforce and workforce expectations is definitely top of that. I do think some of the negatives, however, are the again kind of self awareness and how you come across. But one of the challenges about communicating across this medium is that the subtleties of human character are lost or can be lost as we are sort of construed to sort of postage stamp impressions of each other. So as long as you are aware of how you're coming across and how you're communicating, you can probably overcome those challenges.
So what would you say are the biggest challenges? We've spoken about the medium of hybrid working, and something I've seen is that I'm in the office 2 or 3 days a week now. Some of my time is in meetings or out of meeting clients, and so my time on the ground is very limited, and yet I want to have that same impact to support my people and my presence ever, because we're on this post-pandemic growth journey. We're all facing the same direction. What would you say are the leadership challenges and some of the solutions for 2022?
Oh, I think the main one and the most obvious one is that the role of the leader has evolved from what it used to be. And I think there's a sort of myriad of different reasons for that, ranging from the awareness of the workforce for what's possible and what they care about, whether that's looking after the world and things around climate change, or greater equality and inclusion within the workspace and greater opportunity, or around things like hybrid working and having increased sort of flexibility and independence and an opportunity to grow the careers in the way they want to grow. And so suddenly a leader goes from being a figurehead and very sort of dictatorial, if we think about old-fashioned hierarchies,
Yeah.
One exactly as you are, as you're alluding to, and presenting as a coach, with working with a team to support them, both in their aspirations, but also in the unified goal that the company or the charity or the university is looking to achieve. So I think it's the leader that is changing, and I think whilst that could be perceived as a challenge, and it will certainly be for some if they continue to try and lead in the way that they've done. We've all experienced bad bosses, right? And having been one, sort of being very aware of what that feedback is, and it's all linked to behaviors. If you have a good boss, they're not a great boss because they're technical expertise. They're a great boss because they supported you. So I think that's going to be both the biggest challenge, but also the biggest opportunity. I think we'll see a new type of leader stepping in. And I hope that means that we'll have sort of a different type of leader as well.
Well, I like the sound of that. I think for my own journey, I think the world has grown into the type of leader I am. I see myself as a holistic leader. I've always looked at life as a triangle. You've got the career, you've got people's personal growth, and then you've got their family and loved ones. And ultimately, I think the responsibility of leadership has really grown. You spoke about, diversity being good, not just good in the world, but good for the world. I think leaders have such a huge responsibility, and it's connected to political challenges. It's connected to, so not only are we now creating a culture for people to align and have similar values and behaviors, but also we now have to sort of address things, as you said, climate change, diversity, inclusivity, and belonging. I mean, and actually, if leaders just do the right thing and understand what that looks like, it's going to be pretty easy to facilitate this in your organization. But it's getting that balance. It's getting that balance of thinking the direction of the organization, the direction of your people as human beings on their own journey, and therefore the balance of people's lives between both. And leaders have to then lead by example too. And that's something I used to be really bad at. I would talk about facilitating a hybrid working world, but knew that I had to be in 24/7, or so I thought. Yeah. I knew that I had to be available 24/7. Didn't show my humility in my own mental well-being or mental challenges, and all of that I've shed. And that is, I suppose, the silver lining of the pandemic. And I suppose leaders are freer to be human and yet also be impactful and successful in where their organizations go. But you talked about behaviors. So how do you learn behaviors? Because I look at, the makeup of somebody being 20% skills, 80% mindset, attitude, whatever you want to call it. Where do behaviors fit into that?
And that is the ultimate question that we're looking to solve. I mean, we feel that the only way to learn or develop behaviors is through experiencing them, or experiencing the opportunity to practice them.
Okay.
So what Ethical Angel does is we provide these projects which support charities and NGOs and causes around the world, but they are highly targeted in the behaviors that they're looking for that learner to be able to experience during it. And the hope is that what we can do is train the next generation of leaders, by giving them opportunities at scale to access projects where they can practice behaviors for growth in a way which is likely to result in them being, the leader that we need today.
Yeah, I love that. I love the connection between the commercial and the not-for-profit world. Again, that's something Ethical Angel do so well. So you take leaders from the commercial space and you give them projects that they can deliver in the not-for-profit world. We have our not-for-profit side and our commercial side in the main group. So there's some symbiotic energy going on here, because I think both worlds can learn so much from each other. I think that the not-for-profit world are actually really good at defining their why. It's written everywhere, why we do what we do. Actually, if commercial organizations can get their why right, they will be attracting and retaining people for generations to come. And as you said, even ex-employees saying, God, I want to be part of that, because it's so clearly defined. But it's so hard for commercial organizations and users in the commercial space to feel into their why.
And I love that. I think there are so many benefits of having experiences that offer you the opportunity to learn what we call learning with purpose, so by supporting causes, and it goes beyond that targeted behaviour, right into things like sort of greater sort of social awareness, or perhaps sort of access to causes or areas of interest or focus groups that perhaps are outside of your current silo. So it broadens people's thinking. And again, if we're thinking about what makes a good leader, it's having the right behaviors in place. It's recognizing, it's coaching, it's supporting different people. But critically, if we can do all of those things, perhaps what we envisage a good leader to look like as a recruitment or promotion process can evolve as well, and we can have perhaps a different type of leader running companies of the near future, or universities or schools or whatever.
Yeah, and again, this gives me goosebumps a little bit, because we're talking a lot about Gen Z coming into the workplace now and what drives them, and purpose is the new flexible working, if you like. Gen Z demands that their purpose is fulfilled through the work that they do. A lot of the new generations of working have been given a tough time. They don't have a great reputation, but actually it's about speaking the same language. So again, a leader has to be able to communicate with people at many different levels. Being a leader of the future with purpose, with the why defined, and therefore being inspirational for all generations, really is, isn't it, for the future? And I suppose, with your world, and I promised, we talked about covering how you use AI without going into your brain overflow. How can we go from ideals of what good looks like and experiential learning to actually getting the outcomes that leaders will have the best, being the best leader they can be?
Yeah, I think you used this wonderful word earlier that I would sort of use as part of sort of a paraphrase of my answer, my long answer, that is, and that's symbiosis. If we are looking at these different audiences, whether it's a charity that desperately needs help with new brand guidelines to without spending any money to grow their organization and deliver more help to the area or the cause that they are passionate about, or whether it's the next generation of leaders who are trying to practice and target behaviors, it's all got to be done in a way which is symbiotic. And if we can create sort of a symbiotic relationship that's valuable for all parties, then we can scale it. And where sort of AI or machine learning or systems come in is by being able to analyze thousands of different data points or endpoints to then assess what flow or what process is going to generate the very best outcome for all parties. And that's something that we can't do alone with Excel spreadsheets. We could start it off with, or in a very simple way we could. But if you think about, the simple arguments, right? Charities need stuff and they need to get stuff easily for free. Okay, that's one argument. Learners need to learn stuff, but what do they actually need to learn, and how effective is it going to be? And then finally, if the best way to learn something, anything, is by experiencing it, then what we use is a technology stack that enables us to bring all these things together in a way which is valuable for all users and continuously optimized.
Brilliant. And everyone's a winner.
That was as short an answer as I was really hoping to be able to give you, but it's an area very close to my heart.
I think it was just right, because we understand the link between the three. We understand that, learning is something that is ever evolving. And so with this clever AI in the background, it's constantly updating what learning is going on and how that's going to feed back into the funnel of even more targeted, effective learning.
It's like the way I think of it is like a pinball machine. You've got all your coloured marbles at the top, and you've got all the little pins going down it. And you pull the marbles in, and you're just hoping to guide those marbles into the right places.
And I guess that's what then allows different people to take away their own personalised set of skills and behaviours and what are right for them. I'm not techie at all, so I won't even claim to understand that. But what I love is that, people can upskill as leaders in what sounds like quite a short space of time.
How long is an experience?
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose if I was to throw that question back to you and your audience, if you think about the most powerful experiences you've ever had that have changed you, or you've learned something on, how long have they lasted? The experience itself is not correlated, or the outcome from it is not correlated to the amount of time necessarily invested in it. It's the power of the experience itself. Did it change you? Was it like me getting a behavior coach? Like,
it's the
it could have taken 6 months or 6 weeks or an hour, but like once you have that understanding. But I mean, what we look to do is to present someone with a personal journey, with a very personal experience, where they can get their personal outcomes. I mean, the tech stuff, which is, I find fascinating, is totally hidden. And that's when you know it's a good system, where it doesn't feel like they're experiencing like a neural network of technologies of application. It's where they're just getting experience to practice something and feel like they've done something and feel good from it, and see the feedback, and hopefully as a consequence grow and build confidence themselves to become the leader that they're perfectly capable of becoming.
Indeed. And so much is inside people. And from my own experience, didn't realize that I could be this holistic leader. I thought, is if I demonstrate kindness, is that going to be perceived as weakness? How can I? And everyone talks about authentic leadership. And again, it's being able to bring yourself and your true self to work, but being able to channel that into the outcomes that you need to facilitate your people, the organization, the future, all of that.
You're absolutely right. I mean, if you type boss into Google Images, I mean, the imagery that comes up is all very similar. It's very homogenous and it's super negative. The one thing that we can do over our sort of work-life journeys is change the imagery that is associated with a leader or with a boss. Then that's a fantastic accomplishment, because as you say, it's about sort of helping people unleash their sort of internal brilliance and realizing that they're capable of being a great boss or a great leader without having to rely upon old-fashioned or outdated hierarchical metrics.
Indeed. And the other thing, I suppose, is that there may be an experiential aha moment, but we're constantly learning, aren't we? We're constantly sort of upskilling, I suppose, and different experiences then add another layer of learning and application into a leader's approach.
And I do think that element has got harder as we've moved away from offices. As I think businesses are, I immediately wanted to say lazy when it comes to sort of developing people. But I think what they're increasingly realizing is that as we move to a hybrid working world, the experiential element that they've relied upon up until this point is suddenly becoming more and more pressurized. The opportunity for a graduate to walk into a big office and get sort of that first-hand experience of all different levels of the workplace is not totally lost. Of course, people are still going to offices and it's still collating, but of course it's not going to be as much. And if just that sort of if that sort of degradation in exposure is happening even on a small percentage, that's still going to affect that person's traditional experiential learning approach. So there has to be a different way of providing people with those experiences that I think we all recognise are so valuable.
That's a really important point and really interesting, because again, from the main group's approach to the talent attraction and retention journey, so much of what people, as there's that phrase, people don't leave bad companies, they leave bad managers and bad bosses. And if a manager doesn't have that interaction with their people, how are they going to create that that team environment? How are they going to create that belonging and the feeling that people, what differentiates one organization from another? If there isn't enough connecting people, people will keep leaving. They'll keep, that attrition rate will go through the roof.
Yeah, so, absolutely. And we're seeing organizations try to sort of manage or manipulate that. There was a point where ping pong tables were super popular, right? Every office you went to had like a ping pong table to try and sort of build a culture. Of course, people just get really bored of hearing people playing ping pong in the background and just started working more from home. But I think it goes back to that thing you said right at the outset, which is like you've got to leaders' responsibilities are to coach and establish a culture. And that would be certainly would be sort of my main takeaway from this conversation.
Yeah, I love that, because I see culture as the boat that people are on towards the journey of the organization,
I
right?
like
If you're
that.
not
Yeah.
if you're not all facing and rowing in the same direction, that boat's just going to go around in circles. So culture is the boat, and I see behavior and communication as the oars that drive it forward. Everyone needs to be
Yeah.
rowing in sync and, in the same direction. So what would you say if there's a leader watching this, or somebody in HR who knows that their leader needs a bit of help, but, maybe the leader isn't as self-aware? What would you say are the most important things that leaders need to realize their potential?
Okay. I think the most important thing that leaders need in order to realize self-potential, I think number one would certainly be support from their organization. It's an exploratory process. I wouldn't have been able to, with Ethical Angel, build the team that we've got, see sort of the awards that we've received, grow with the companies that we've grown with, if I hadn't had the support from my team and from our shareholders and the board to give me the opportunity to grow myself. So I do passionately believe that if the organization has a supportive environment, then people can feel the freedom to learn, and that learning can be sure, it can take a long time. It's experience. Yeah. I think the second point that I think is really interesting, and this is what we're seeing from some of the companies we're working with, is that the learning objectives or behavior targets or competency frameworks that have traditionally permeated our organizations as sort of this big sort of globulous sort of like set of criteria are evolving into one which is recognizing individuals, recognizing personalities, recognizing neurologically diverse members of the workforce in a totally different way. So we go from having this sort of like one size fits all to actually, okay, we can provide a sort of supportive environment to grow different people in different ways that will help them.
Yeah.
And then I think finally, so if you have the support and if you have the recognition of the individual, then it's giving them time. And if you give someone time to go off and, Ethical Angel is just one application that you can use for learning. There are tons out there. There's loads of, as YouTube is a plethora of opportunity to pick up information on just about anything nowadays. But what Ethical Angel offers is that opportunity to experience something. And of course, our experiences, because they're all related to charities, they're all impactful as well. So we think the learning and purpose angle is critical to developing leaders.
I think it's so powerful, not only how you help leaders improve, but actually the way they create that impact on not-for-profit projects out there. Can you give me an example of one that you've done?
What I can do is, if I start off with perhaps of emphasizing why it's important beyond the obvious. I mean, clearly, you help the NSPCC with a project, and that saves the NSPC money, which they can then put into, the area that they focus on. That's all great, and that's awesome, and I freaking love that. But there's another element which is critical to learning, and that is you can design and build the most beautiful, well thought out, personalized learning journey or program. But if it's not engaging, if it doesn't grab the attention and grab the interest of the learner, it's going to fail, or it's certainly not going to be an optimum outcome for your program, for your staff, for your organization. And I think what experiences where you are being told how important, how valuable your personal impact is, results in highly engaging learning opportunities. So I think there's sort of a double benefit that comes out of supporting or working with charities. Of course, there's the obvious tangible social impact, which is awesome and great and so cool. But it's also the fact that you can have some confidence as a program leader that if you're going to connect this party up with this organization, they are going to do something cool, and they're going to do something cool in a way which is going to benefit both parties, in a way which sends them on a course in Milton Keynes, or to sit in a classroom in, I don't know, even New York or something like that.
No, so much of the challenge of any learning is that it doesn't embed, and it doesn't become the norm, and it becomes a booklet shoved away in a drawer and then never.
I mean, we've all got those booklets, right? We've all been on those courses. When is this going to end? When do I have to get my train home?
And this is so different. I just I think the future is experiential learning. Leadership, sort of engaged, conscious leadership, holistic, whatever you want to call it, being in touch, not only outwardly to where you want to take your organization, but where your people are and where they need to be and supporting them in that. It's everything, isn't it? I mean, how do you now, Alex, we started with your story. If we were to come full 360, how do you keep your learning in check to ensure that what you took from this approach still embeds and still facilitates value back into your organization?
I mean, I think it's look, there's so many elements to that. I think the first one is having a culture where we can comfortably provide feedback. I think that's super important. I mean, that's an amazing check to ensuring that you guys are building, like anyone is building the culture of the company that they want to build for all the right reasons. However awesome the vision, like, culture is so important to achieving that mission.
They say culture eats strategy for breakfast, don't they? That's one of those famous phrases that I've heard. But you need.
I can believe that. So, like, number one is, like, ensure the culture. I mean, in terms of, like, the learning and all the stuff that's going on, obviously, like, it's great to be leading this company and this team, and we've got a big and growing team with increasingly specialist expertise, which is super cool. But what we have as well as an academic board, and they provide, I would suppose, they provide sort of our polar star. They are the ones that provide us with a guide from all the various areas of interest, whether it's in designing amazing projects to satisfy targeted behaviors or creating an incredible flow so that everyone has sort of like a smart methodology where everyone gets what they want from the experience, whether they're a charity or a learner, whether it's looking at the data to see how we can develop things, but also looking at the causes, and it's so easy to build a commercial model which focuses purely on the money side of the business. So our subscribers are businesses, they pay Ethical Angel for licenses so their learners can go off and have these incredible experiences and learn things in an extraordinary way. But it's reliant on us being able to support the cause community. And there are millions of charities, social enterprise NGOs. We have causes in over 52 different countries. And if we're not listening to them about what they actually need from the learners as a beneficial project, then of course the whole sort of scalability of the mechanism starts to crumble. So I would say that there's an equal part between, like, making sure we're building amazing learning experiences, make sure that we have that sort of supporting the causes that need the support. In a way which is actually valuable, and it's not just more corporate BS or whatever. Like, it's actually stuff that's making a difference, and then making sure that's all underpinned with a really powerful technology stack, which makes sure that everyone has an incredible experience without realizing that there is a hugely powerful application behind it.
Fantastic. Well, I'm glad that you're the expert in the tech, and that anyone engaging
I'm not.
Right. But Ethical Angel, you have that's what you facilitate. And I just, first of all, I want to say thank you, Alex, because, your insight and your approach to leadership learning is unique. As you said, hundreds of thousands of platforms for learning, soft skills, strategy, whatever. But ultimately, experiential learning, I believe, is the future. I think micro learning is the future. I think that constantly, and the feedback, what you mentioned about the feedback loop is everything. So I think if there's one thing that anyone is going to take away from today, I would say, take this poll, look at the 4 areas, and ask your leaders to be open to 360 anonymous feedback, and take it from there, and start with your top leaders, then do your managers, then do team leaders, and from it, there will be so much knowledge that you can then apply to which direction and how you upskill your leaders. And if Ethical Angel are part of that future, please let us know. Alex, you're on LinkedIn. We're
That's
on LinkedIn. Right, We recommend everyone to follow us on LinkedIn, but also both Alex's and the main group details will come to you with the recording today. So if there's anything else that you need to help your leaders be more impactful, supportive, and really be inspirational for their people to create that success and happiness, then please let us know. It's been a pleasure, Alex. We're already up time is already up. It always goes so quick, but I just want to say thank you. And also thank you to our attendees today. The poll, I'm just about to release the numbers. Actually, communication ended up on 75 and self-awareness on 25%. But would you not say, Alex, that communication and self-awareness are almost one and the same?
Oh, I think definitely one leads into the other. I mean, I'm still rooting for self-awareness. I think a good leader is self-aware, and I'm saying that from my personal experience. I think communication is clearly an element related to that. Yeah. But I suppose my passing thought would be, if we took 30 seconds just to remember the best manager that you've ever had, and then ask yourself, why were they the best manager you've ever had? Yeah. I wonder what the responses would be to that.
That's food for thought indeed. Thank you, Alex. Really appreciate your time. Thank you, everyone. The main event is on every Thursday at 12 p.m. It's been so insightful. The recording will be out to you all, and we'll see you again 12 o'clock next week. Bye, Alex. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Mila. Bye-bye.
Bye.